1. Okay, so my girlfriend and I were really engaged to be engaged. We both agreed we wanted to get married, but I hadn't done the formal proposal yet, as we wanted to meet each other's families first. Neither lived nearby. I always thought the old trope about meeting the in-laws being a big fiasco was a myth, both because I was younger and more naive then, and because I'm lucky to have easy parents. My girlfriend met them for a few hours. Once we were alone, just me and them, I told them my intentions, and my mom asked, "Does she have any kids already?" And my dad asked, "Does she have a good solid job?" And they both asked, "You really love her?" And that was that. I had their full support for the marriage. I thought meeting her parents would be the same. Some grilling was to be expected, but as long as I was honest and respectful, it would all be fine. Relevant fact, they had my girlfriend when they were teenagers, by surprise, so now had a do-over daughter, their words not mine, who was just 6 years old. My girlfriend and I made the trip up to their city, and I met them for the first time over dinner at a steakhouse. It was pretty upscale, and we'd scheduled the dinner for 8 p.m., so I was surprised to see they brought the kid along with them. I met everyone at once, and the initial awkwardness settled once we sat down. We were making great small talk when the 6-year-old said she was thirsty. No big deal, right? Well, all of a sudden, Ellen, my girlfriend's mother, starts screaming, "Water! Water! Water!" A waiter came rushing over to see what the commotion was, and without even making eye contact with the poor guy, Ellen went, "We've been here forever, and no one's even gotten us any water. My daughter's been asking." We had been sitting for about 15 or 20 minutes without service, but they were visibly behind. And there were no circumstances that would have warranted that shouting. I should have realized from how unfazed everyone else was at the table that I should be bracing myself for a long night, but I couldn't imagine what was to come at that point. The waiter rushed over with the water and apologized for the delay, explaining a few very large parties had arrived all at once. The guy seemed sincere and quite affable, so I thought the water would just be an anomaly in an otherwise pleasant night. Then Ellen kicked into full gear. "We'll need a kids menu," she informed the waiter. He said they didn't have a kids menu, but that the chef could simplify most dishes. "What do you mean you don't have a kids menu?" Ellen replied in total disbelief, as though he said they didn't have a fire exit. He explained that they didn't get too many child visitors and that there were enough plain foods on the menu that no separate menu had ever been necessary. Ellen sighed dramatically and waved him away. Literally, without saying a word, waved him off from the table. I tried to give him an apologetic glance, but understandably he didn't look back our way. I was so glad the poor guy left and didn't have to be subjected to her anymore. Meanwhile, she turned her attention to me, and I almost wished he'd come back. At least he was getting paid to be here. She was like, "So you're a screenwriter?" And I explained, "Well, yes and no. I want to be, but it's hard to get a job in that field that you can support yourself on. So I'm working at a non-profit right now. There's a screenwriting component to the job, though, so I'm really happy there." Ellen turned to her 6-year-old and went, "Hear that, hon? You want to be sure to snag a man who works for profit. Learn from this. It's not too late for you." I couldn't tell if she was trying to be funny or not, so I just let it pass, looking over to my girlfriend to see if she was even considering speaking up on my behalf. Nope. The waiter came back, visibly nervous. That hurt because he was so relaxed and personable at the start of the meal. He asked if we'd like to hear the specials before we ordered, and Ellen said, "Sure, here's how that went. First we have a lightly seared season. Next! Okay. Then we have a broiled leg of grass-fed. Next! We have a pasta prima verda mixed with next! And so on until he'd gone through all 7 or 10 specials. Even though she ultimately ordered off the menu a plain ribeye well done. She tried to order her daughter the same, but the kid just wanted plain mashed potatoes. So Ellen let her get mashed potatoes alone for dinner, then sent the waiter away. The rest of us hadn't even ordered yet, and everyone else just sat there like it was entirely normal. I waited for someone to say something, thinking it was more her older daughter, my girlfriend's place, or her husband's. Was the one steak and potatoes going to be for all of us, or... My girlfriend explained, in the tone you'd use for a tourist violating a sacred local taboo. My mom always has the waiter put the kids' food in first so it can get started right away. We'll order once the kitchen has hers. I thought she was joking, since Ellen didn't just order her kids' food. She also ordered her own dinner too, so I laughed. Something funny? Ellen asked. Then I realized she was serious and I shut up. Thankfully her dad at least recognized what was normal for them might not be as regular to me, and tried to lighten the mood with a change of topic. But not even 10 minutes after we'd ordered, I guess technically 5 minutes after we'd ordered, 10 minutes after she and her daughter had ordered, Ellen started in again. Another table that had been there long before we were got a side order of mashed potatoes with their meal. Ellen threw a total conniption. She was sputtering so inaudibly that none of us could figure out what was wrong at first. Finally, she managed to flag down some busboy who barely spoke English, and began laying into him like he just sideswiped her on the freeway. He kept trying to explain he wasn't a server and he could go get one, but she wouldn't stop to breathe long enough for him to find someone who could actually help. All the while, I kept looking at my girlfriend for signs of embarrassment, or at the very least irritation. But you wouldn't have known if she was hearing any of this. Our waiter came over, somehow still feigning a smile despite knowing what he was walking into. And Ellen actually goes, "Why did that table get mashed potatoes, and ours haven't come yet?" The waiter kindly but concisely explained, "Well, ma'am, those people ordered potatoes before your party had placed their order." Ellen looks this man dead in the eye, finally, and says, "Well, it doesn't matter when they ordered. My daughter is the youngest one here. Her food should come out first." You could tell the waiter was working hard to restrain himself at this point. He explained it was a first-come, first-served policy, and age didn't help one way or the other. He offered to go check on the potatoes. Ellen agreed, or more specifically, she said, "Yeah, you better." But I was clocking him, and he went right back to his server station because we had only just ordered a few minutes ago. 3 or 5 more minutes passed, during which we could have no other discussion at the table except how awful this restaurant was, how hungry the poor baby was, who hadn't said a word about being hungry this whole time, and was contentedly playing her loud iPad game without headphones, disturbing all the other diners around us. And how America has lost all respect for motherhood because it's just a me culture now. I chimed in, "I'm with you on that last part," and to my utter shock, instead of laughing at my joke, my girlfriend seemed annoyed with me. So after a few minutes the waiter comes back and says the potatoes will be out very soon. Ellen then goes and does something that again I thought was just a myth. She took 3 singles and a 5 out of her wallet and put them on the table in view of the waiter. Then she took 1 single away and said, "Every table I see getting potatoes before us is a bill gone." I was absolutely mortified. The waiter, to his unending credit, just took a deep breath and said, "I don't have control over the order in which the kitchen fires tickets, but what I can tell you is it should be out any minute," and left without saying anything disparaging. I had been holding my tongue all night as well, in the name of my relationship, but once the tip hit the table, the $8 tip for a $100 plus bill on top of all else, I figured if my girlfriend was half the woman I thought she was, then she wouldn't mind my speaking up at this point. If anything, she'd be supportive, right? So I scooted my chair back a bit and said, "Listen, I know what you're doing with the cash on the table, but that kind of thing makes me really uncomfortable, and it's just not called for. Please put the money away or we can just continue this some other time." My girlfriend's dad spits back, "What? How cheap do you have to be not to believe in tipping service workers?" Before I could process whether he was seriously yanking my chain, Ellen shocked me with, "No, you know what? You're right, this isn't necessary." I should have known better than to be relieved. She folded the bills back into her wallet, patiently waited for the next plate of mashed potatoes to be carried out, and when it wasn't delivered to us, it was a very common side dish at this place, a steakhouse, she went right up to a stranger's table and picked it up off their table. She have explained something about her daughter starving to death as she was walking away with this stranger's food, but unsurprisingly, that wasn't convincing enough for them. The old lady she took it from followed her right over to our table and tried to take it back. I was already searching for my coat tag in preparation to go, but a shoving match was beginning to unfold between Ellen and an elderly woman with a tennis ball walker, and far be it from me to sit through all that had happened, just to leave as the night was getting interesting. The elderly woman was like, "Give me back my potatoes, who are you?" And the poor little girl was like, "Mommy, it's okay, don't take someone else's potatoes." But it all fell on deaf ears. Ellen yelled at the old lady. "How could you sit there and eat these when my daughter hasn't even been served yet? She's sitting here hungry, just a little girl, and you're over there stuffing your face. Come on, other potatoes will be out any minute." And the old lady, God to love her, was like, "Great, if they'll be out any minute, then what's the fucking problem?" To which Ellen still found, holier than thou ground, gasping, "Language, please!" Finally, the waiter, and this time someone higher up as well, I think the manager, thank God, came over to separate them, as they had begun to raise their voices and cause a disturbance. Staff had already asked Ellen to turn down her daughter's iPad multiple times without heed, and I'm guessing the waiter informed the management about the tip on the table stunt she pulled, because this was their final straw. They told us we were going to have to leave the restaurant. "But we don't even have our food yet," Ellen complained to the guy. This was clearly not the manager's first rodeo. "You can take the food that's already been served free of charge. Everything else will be cancelled. Please leave immediately." The old lady didn't miss her chance to knock the potatoes right onto the floor so we could try to take them with us. Nothing else had been served yet, so we had to leave without any food. When my girlfriend and I were finally alone in her car, she said, "Can you believe that?" And I said, "Not at all. And I really can't believe you didn't warn me." "How could I have known about any of that?" And I, confused, asked, "Is she not usually like that?" She was even more confused than me. My girlfriend responded, "Who?" "Your mom." "What's my mom got to do with terrible service at that place?" That was the beginning of the end of our relationship. The fact that she didn't see anything wrong with her mom's behavior, and that I'd been marrying into that situation, shook me too deep. We both dodged a bullet in more ways than one. In hindsight, we weren't right for each other, regardless of who her family was. Her mom saved us both a lot of time and heartache, helping me realize in one night what would have probably taken us years otherwise. Within a month, we'd moved into separate apartments and gone on a break that ended up lasting forever. I'm not sorry I won't see you again, Ellen. I am sorry any waitstaff ever will, though. 2. I am the manager of a retail store that sells cellular service. We are extremely customer service oriented, and we value all of our customers. I knew this one was going to be a doozy right from the get-go. Our store has a policy that is only one person per family at a time in the store, to keep our headcount below the CDC-regulated 10 people at any given point in time in the same area. Well, here we go. The Clampett family hopped out of their jacked-up 1999 F-150. Think monster truck, but more white trash. Our policy is we greet customers at the door and give them a friendly message on our policies. I explained to the mother and father that masks must be worn at all times, and normally only one family member is to be let in, with minor exceptions here and there. The father and mother immediately piss and moan that they have to put a mask on. They still did, so I explain I can make an exception right now for all 4 of them to come into the store, but if we continue to get customers, one parent would have to bring the children outside. So they agreed, and we let them in. Right off the bat, the children begin running through and dismantling our accessory walls. These children are old enough to know better, as they're between 8 and 11 years old. So to calm them down, I grabbed a store demo tablet and sanitized it, and I got them situated at a table that wasn't being used. The children immediately start fighting over it, to the point where one of the children grabs the tablet and slams it against the corner of a table. The parents weren't paying attention to them by any means. I brought attention to the mother and father, explaining that the tablets can be used by them if they treat it nicely. The mother, I shit you not, said exactly this. "Isn't this a cell phone store? Just run in back and grab a new one if they break it." I explained that this isn't the case, and it would have to be treated with respect. The mother got frustrated and just took it away from them. Those crotch goblins began to throw a fit. Not like upset and mad, but full-on temper tantrum. At this time, we started getting more customers in. I explained because of how many more customers we had waiting that one of the parents would need to take the children outside, while the other completes the transaction now. This is when the entitled mother gave me an eye roll that would make the undertaker cream in his pants. She says, "We were here first, why should we have to leave?" I explained our previous conversation, to which she replies she didn't give a shit about that. I apologized if there was a miscommunication, but as I was the one that stated it to her, I was 100% sure when she gave me the affirmation she understood. Now, Dad has been pretty cool for all this, but you see him getting frustrated. The woman begins to berate me not professionally but personally, attacking my intelligence, my stature, and my overall existence as being a piece of shit. I calmly take it all in, and when she finally finishes several minutes later, I asked, "So, are you going to take your children out, or is the father?" The dad chuckled at this, the wife did not. This is when she told me to fuck off. This is when I told her to get the fuck out, but without the derogatory language, and with the assistance of our on-hand police officer. I wish I could have taken a picture of how ghostly her face became when she realized an officer of the law was witnessing the entire ordeal. The mother was issued a criminal trespassing warning, and the children witnessed their entitled mother get put in her place. The father later confided in us that the children were not his, and he was stuck with this one because he got this bitch knocked up. He apologized to us and the officers for her actions, and he finished by saying he hopes to God it's not his kid. 3. This happened in 2003 when I was 13. We lived on a farm, and my mother rescued animals and bought purebred dogs and horses to breed and to show. We had 50+ animals at any given time, but none were in cages. We had the space for them to roam around the property. We had been doing this since I was 10, so I helped deliver my fair share of puppies and kittens. And then came the goats when I was 13. There were 50 white Angora goats, in need of a new home after another farm closed down. We had the space, so we took them. And not long after that came breeding season. Some of the goats were too old to breed anymore, so they were separated from the other goats and bucks while everything went down. A few weeks later, we could see which were pregnant, so we started to make separate areas for them to settle into, while they were pregnant and for when they had their kids. We had 15 pregnant goats. A few of the does were first-time mums. Most of them took it quite well when the kids were born, but 2 of them rejected their kids. Angora goats only have 1 kid at a time on average. We tried to put those 2 kids with another family, but they didn't want them. So we had 2 choices. Put them down or hand raise them. I chose option B. There was a boy who I named Stitch and a girl who I named Lilo. I did the whole thing on my own, getting up every 5 hours to feed them and clean their pen. We kept them inside. After week 3 of me doing this, the goats became very attached to me, mostly Lilo, who would follow me around the farm during the day, whereas Stitch would play with the other baby goats. After 10 weeks, I weaned them both off the bottle, and they were ready to join the flock, which Stitch gladly did, but not Lilo. She got on better with the cats and dogs than she did with the other goats. She would follow me around everywhere and would start bleating, crying if I left the farm. So one day I took her for a walk. I had a dog harness her size, so I put it on her with a leash. I had no clue how she'd respond to this, as she'd never left the farm before, let alone had a harness on. But she took to it straight away. It was like she was so happy to be with me that she didn't notice the harness. Along the first walk down the driveway, one of my neighbors complimented me on my well-trained goat. Lilo absolutely loved it, so I made it a daily thing. Every day when I got home from school, I'd take her for a walk around town, and within a week, I didn't worry about the harness or lead. She would just trot along beside me, with her tail wagging like mad. Then came Karen. We went down to the creek with me sitting and watching Lilo play in the water. The creek was at the back of a tennis court that sat beside a sports field. There was a cricket match going on that day, but unless you walked off the field, you wouldn't see the creek. So I was out of sight, or so I thought. I heard someone walking up to me, so I turned to say hello. I didn't recognize her, so she must have been from out of town, or a friend of someone from town.
Hi, nice day, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Do you live on a farm?
Yeah, just up the road.
Do you have dogs? I'm looking to get a puppy for my son.
We don't have puppies right now, but we should have some in a few months' time.
Can I have yours?
Pointing to Lilo. That's a goat. From a distance, I guess she could be mistaken for a dog, but not when you really looked.
Don't talk to me like that. I've seen you walking your dog around town. Now give me the dog.
Excuse me? That is a goat, and no, you can't have her. We have other baby goats you can have instead if you really want one. After really looking and realizing it's a goat and not a dog.
I don't like your tone, young lady. What would your mother think if she knew you were talking to me like this?
You can go and ask her yourself if you want, but it's your funeral. Pointing in the general direction of the farm, knowing what my mum's reaction would be to this woman if she was to try anything with her.
How dare you! I'll teach you for disrespecting me!
Karen proceeded to whistle and call out to my goat in the way you would a dog, expecting Lilo to come to her. When this didn't work, she walked over and attempted to pick her up. Here's the thing about goats. They're fast little buggers. If you think you're going to catch one that doesn't want to be caught, you're in for a rude awakening. Lilo sprinted away from Karen and went in my direction. I picked her up and began to walk away, with Karen muttering profanities under her breath at me and her failed attempt at kidnapping. I was worried she might follow me home, so I took a detour through another property that joins up to the creek, and then to our property at the back of the creek. Even if she was to follow me, it's easy to get lost when going this way if you haven't done it before. I never saw Karen again after that, but it didn't discourage me from walking my goat. She was smart and loyal and damn fast when she wanted to be. Most of the time, she would be walking me, which is part of the reason why I took her off the leash. A message to all Karens out there: don't steal goats. A sentence I never thought I'd type out. 4. I honestly didn't believe that there are these kinds of incredibly entitled people who think that stealing a phone from someone to entertain their kid is acceptable behavior. Guess you never believe in saying things till they happen to you. For a little context, I work as a security consultant for a fairly paranoid company, which is kinda understandable considering the sensitive nature of our work and the kind of client we usually have, but it leads to zero shit taken policies. Yesterday I took a day off to deal with some of that lovely government bureaucracy. I sit in an office, government office no less, and wait for an appointment. It's hot, it's kinda humid. The kids forced to wait there with their parents are cranky, and I'm reading and answering my email on my phone, since there ain't much else to do anyway. An entitled kid comes up to me.
What you playing?
I'm not playing, I'm doing my emails. I admit it may look like playing a game, since I'm not the young kind of person who is super fast at typing on a phone keyboard, a skill I really envy the youth of today for. I'm more hunt and peck style. I prefer using a desktop by far. I need to concentrate to actually hit the right letters. So I don't notice that EK returns to his mother, who appears shortly afterwards just as I finish my mails.
Come on, let my son play on your phone for a while so he doesn't nag me.
Sorry? Ma'am, this is my work phone. There ain't no games on it. There really is nothing on it that could be remotely considered fun. These things are stripped down to the bare bone. Must be present stuff with zero leeway when it comes to what you put on them.
Bollocks. I saw you play. Let him play for a while. We'll be in before you, so you get your precious phone back soon enough.
Sorry, ma'am, I'm not allowed to give my work phone to anyone. That's no lie. On my phone, some rather sensitive information is potentially accessible. It does take a few extra steps, and you need to jump through a few additional access hoops. But as I said before, my company is a bit paranoid when it comes to this, and we're only allowed to use our phone to access corporate information in what is considered a controlled environment. I am, as said above, in a government building, with an additional feature that will become apparent soon. It doesn't get any more controlled than that. Most of all, I'm not allowed to give my phone to anyone outside the company, and even only a select few people inside of it, and most certainly not in an unlocked and hence usable state. Fortunately, at this point, I already closed down the mail container, which needs additional unlocks to access the mail portion, as she simply snatches my phone from my hands. I was actually flabbergasted for a moment before I realized just what she did. She has my work phone in her hands, unlocked. In short, I am very close to not having a quiet weekend, and she is very close to having a few very uncomfortable weeks, months, or years, depending on how creative our legal department gets. Ma'am, please give me back my phone this very moment. My company is very strict with phones, and unless you hand it back this very moment, I have to report this to the authorities and report a theft of my phone to my company. They will press charges. Please, ma'am, please give me that phone back. No luck. She waves it off and tells me to not be a baby, as she hands my phone to her son, telling me I'll get it back as soon as it's their turn to go in.
It's not like we're leaving with your precious phone.
Ma'am, for the last time? Actually, him pushing a button on the phone would already have required me to report it as stolen and tampered with. But I am at this point willing to assume that a child of about 7 to 8 years is not trying to steal trade secrets, or steal or tamper with security reports. I have to call the police if you do not hand the phone back right now. She glowers at me and then asks in an incredibly sassy tone,
Yeah? How you gonna call the police without your phone?
I sigh, pull out my private phone, which actually does contain a few games, and frankly, if she had asked any nicer, I would have let her son play with it. Even if he breaks it, no big deal. Dial the not quite an emergency police number and report what's going on, all the while EM glowering at me, very obviously not believing I really called the cops for something as trivial as that. Frankly, if I didn't have to, I probably would not have. If that was my private phone in her son's hands, I would not have bothered. Now, since this is a government building and a police station is right inside the same building, it doesn't even take a minute until 2 policemen enter the room, which causes EM to go pale for just a moment before acting as if it isn't her business at all. The police ask me what's going on. I explain it to them. They ask EM, and she has the audacity to claim that it's her phone, and that I want to steal it from her. That's easy to prove. Lock the phone and let's see who can unlock it. She claims she forgot the code. By then, the policemen have a pretty clear picture of what's going on. I unlock the phone to show it's mine, and they ask if I want to press charges. I tell them I don't want to, but I have to. No later than now, because now there's a police report about it. So I have no choice anymore. And knowing our legal department, they usually get very creative as to what they try to slap on this. Which I am currently not really regretting, because as of this writing, I'm on the phone with our internal security, who is just as happy as I am to deal with this on a weekend. That happened 2 months ago. A little update. I did not have an enjoyable weekend afterwards, as predicted. Our legal department actually did press charges, including industrial espionage. Remember, we're talking about a boy of maybe 7 years playing with my phone. In the words of one of our lawyers, and I quote, "That way, the sum is high enough that the Karen needs to hire and pay for a lawyer herself." I honestly don't know what's scarier. To think that they really tacked on industrial espionage to this petty bullshit? Or that a 50-year-old high-level corporate lawyer knows and uses the term Karen. 5. So I've been practicing for a classical piano audition at my local conservatory, equivalent of music university in other countries, because it has always been my dream to perform classical music. This is sadly not my first encounter with an entitled parent, but still, I've been studying hard for 4 or 5 months, and I feel so proud of all the work I've managed to finish. Fact is, the classical piano was one of the hardest sections of the conservatory to get in, because there's always so many people that want to get in and try. This is about all that I have to say about the backstory. My mom knew EM for a long time. EM is selfish, rude, and always likes to brag about EK's abilities with other people that don't want to hear anything from her. EM is hella rich also, and doesn't have a problem bragging about that too. EK is a pianist also, younger than me, about 11, entitled to the bone. I wouldn't say he is not skilled, but we shared a piano once, and he seems not to care about anything but his playing. I complimented him once for his playing, and he just didn't care. Plus, he can't stand my playing for more than 5 minutes. EM kept on bragging with my mom about EK being a young talent, a skilled pianist, and prolific composer. As soon as she discovered that I wanted to go to the conservatory too, She seemed to not like any sort of competition for her son, and subtly made comments on my playing with my mom, trying to convince her to not let me do this exam, although she never actually heard me playing. This obviously made me incredibly upset, because I sadly knew that those who are rich and have contacts inside of the conservatory were pretty much assured to pass. I don't know if this is a thing only here or in most academic circles regarding music, but this actually made me feel quite worried. I had occasion to hear EK studying a quite simple etude, Stephen Haller's 12th etude from Opus 45 or 47, I believe. My teacher told me so much information on the correct performing and phrasing about that etude, and I felt so informed about it. So as soon as EK finished playing and asked me if I heard how good his playing was, I just submerged him with harsh and frustrated critique. First of all, no phrasing, dynamics were completely ignored, barely used any pedal when it was asked, no accents, no crescendos, no final diminuendo, no legato. Second of all, I told him how there was a huge lack of decent interpretation, too quick of a tempo to be satisfying to the ear. He was shocked. He surely wasn't expecting that, and he probably didn't know half of these words. Obviously, EK told everything to EM, who reported everything to my mom, saying that I insulted EK's playing and that I should have apologized. She said how I wasn't nice and polite enough to have private lessons with a teacher at the conservatory, and that with my aggressive attitude, I wouldn't have lasted long. She once again boasted about her contacts and walked away. I quickly forgot about him and EM and continued studying until 1 week ago. The final exam results were sent to us by email. This year's exam was based on a video with specific requirements that I had to send to examiners in order to pass. So I think it was a little bit easier to pass, although examiners would have probably been more fussy and give more weight to errors. I passed it. I did it. I cannot describe my joy and relief knowing that. And then EK came to my mind. We spent some time searching through my conservatory's website in order to see a full list of the students who passed. And I felt so good, so avenged, that EK failed. He failed. I checked the list for more than 10 times, not believing it. But despite the money and the contacts, he failed. I never felt so good in my life, and I doubt I ever will. So, moral of the story, at least wait for the results to boast about something. Or please, don't boast about anything at all. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to the Impractical Proudness of Parents, IPOP number 48. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Ooh, one of those weeks. Some weeks stories are just kind of hard to pull together. It's been one of those. But they do happen, so I'm not too concerned at the moment. It did give me an excuse to put out feelers for a new series. I've been doing the call center stories, but there's also a whole reservoir of tech support stories that might be quite fun. A little bit of crossover with the call center stuff, but by and large, a lot of them seem to be actually in the field, fixing equipment, dealing with troublesome customers. So hopefully, I'm 2 in, hopefully I'll get more, and we can put something together for that. Not sure when that'll be out. I'm hoping sometime in the next week, but if not, as soon as it's ready, really. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.